Welcome. Today we are going to have a look at a puzzle file. Right now I'm going to go ahead and open up this SVG. I always like to open up my SVG in Chrome to begin with. That's why you see it set to Chrome, just so that I can get a look at what it looks like. So this is what it's supposed to look like when it imports into our editor program. So I'm going to be using Lightburn on that. But this is what it's supposed to look like. So we have our puzzle pieces here, and over here we're going to have our second layer and our back layer. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3 layers. 2 layers we can probably get by with. You could cut these individually. What I'm going to try to do is cut them together to kind of save wood. I don't want to have that much waste. So I'm gonna try to group these and merge them together so that we can get this out of just 2 solid pieces of wood. But this is the file that we're going to be using. I'm going to leave this open in case we need to access it later. Now I'm going to import this into Lightburn. Okay, now I've got my Lightburn here. I'm going to save this. I always want to save before I get started, just because I want to make sure that we're not using some other file. We don't want to save over the SVG or the DXF. We don't want to do either of that. So we're going to just create a new Lightburn project here and save it in our tutorial files folder. And now I'm going to import the SVG or the DXF. It doesn't matter which one. They do come in about the same. So you zoom in, and of course I'm using my mouse roller to zoom in. I hold that down to grab. So we're zooming with the roller, zooming out, and then we're grabbing to pan. Okay. So what I want to do is, so we have our different layers here. So they all came in on the same layer, but we're gonna break these down. So I'm gonna have a cut layer, and some people have these automatically saved, so they know 00 is like a text layer and 01 is a cut layer for a specific material. And so a lot of people have their own different file settings saved like that. I don't, because every material and every file is so different, so I can just kind of play with it as I go. If it helps you to create presets to use them, by all means I do recommend that if that's something that you find helpful. So right now we're going to do our back layer. Now everything that I make, I always put my logo on, because I don't want someone taking credit for my work. So I'm also going to import my signature file that I have. So let me go find that signature file. This is my June file, but I'll fix it for July. But I'm going to burn that on the back of this one right here. So I'm going to take these 2 over here. I'm going to move those over. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to start prepping my file. And first I'm going to change this to July. Now this is an SVG I did elsewhere, so I can't use the text tool here, so I'm just going to type it in whatever font is first, and then I'm going to change it. Now I know my font here, the font that I use, and so I'm going to select that font, and then I'm just going to kind of make sure I get it back the same size. So I'm going to zoom in there. Still a little big, so I'm going to stretch it, grab the corner there and stretch it in. Another way that I could do this is I could click on here and say, oh, okay, that height is 546. So, oh no, that height is, I'm sorry, looking in the wrong spot, not 546. That height is 3.72. So I'm going to click on this one, and I can change that height to 3.72, and we have a closer match. Now, you see that I put that in at 3.72, right? And that's about 3.72, but they don't look the same. And that's because this is still in a text format and this is in an object format. So effectively, it's not apples to apples. So I'm going to stretch this out just a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is just my signature. I like to sign my work. Some people don't find that necessary. Some people have different opinions about that, but you know, this is what I want to do. Now this right here should be a solid. That's just one. I'm hitting Control Z because I didn't like how I moved that. I'm going to select that and I'm going to center it. And then I'm going to come down here and move this back because I hit the wrong center. I should have centered left to right, but it's fine. It's no big deal. I'm going to do this as a line, but I'm not going to make this a cut line. So I'm going to change these layers. I'm going to put that on layer 1. I'll adjust the settings later. Right now I'm just going to divvy up my layers. So I'm going to group that. Okay, so that's all moving together. I right-clicked and grouped it. You can ungroup it if you need to. And then I'm going to center these two because I'm just going to put that right there in the center. So there we go. This is going to be a different cut line. So this is going to be an engraving line. It's not going to be really truly be a cut line, this blue line. I'm going to engrave that on there using a line feature, which means I won't have any of the little letters filled in. I like the look of that. You can, if you prefer a solid engraved look, you could go with that. Whatever works best for you. If you were to make a design like this on a fill, so pay attention to that because these right here, being on fill, you wouldn't want these circles to be dark like that, or at least I wouldn't. So what I would do if I wanted this to be on a fill, I would ungroup it. Ungroup it. So see how that is right there? Right, and then I would change this layer, this shape and this shape, those two circles, to a different line. So I would change those to difference. And now you don't see that dark circle there. I hope I'm communicating this well. If you have questions, please, by all means, let me know in the comments. But this is how I would do that if I wanted my name filled in. But again, I like the just straight line look. So I'm going to undo everything that I just did. And we're going to move this back to just a line. So it's gonna double over on those. I like the depth that it creates. But so this is gonna be my back layer, and I always like to cut those first because it gives me more time to tweak these little things while that's going. But in the meantime, I'm going to take both of these. I'm just going to kind of move them out of the way. And I'm going to put them on a frame layer, and I'm going to turn that frame layer off. So it's a tool layer, tool 2. I like to use my orange for actual framing where I want the laser to recognize, and then I use the tool 2, the T2 layer, as a non-frame tool layer, and that hopefully causes lightburn to ignore its existence completely. Now you will see from time to time, even when a layer is turned off, lightburn might recognize it, and you might notice that your little green arrow here is not where you want it to be. So I'm going to burn this at the size it was created, which in this case looks like to be a 12 by 12 area. So this is what I'm going to burned first. I'm going to burn this first layer while we play around with the second layer. So I'm going to make sure my machine is plugged in and turned on. Okay. And then I'm going to load the wood. Get my wood together over here. For this tutorial, I am just going to use some very thin wood because it's a scrap project. I don't plan on doing this on a commercial level. This is a 2.7 millimeter underlay, and again, this is just for this tutorial. You may want to do something like this as a gift. You may want to use a thicker wood, like this revolutionary ply, or even something more sturdy. That's a scrap piece of wood there. And I'm going to make this my back and this my front. Now, because we are cutting and engraving with the logo that I want on the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and engrave this bottom side up. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put this in the laser. Turn the light on my enclosure here. And I'm going to get this put in. Ooh. Get this put in my laser. Get all my pins out of the way, my honeycomb pins. I'm going to position this on here. Position this on here. Again, this is my upside down layer because I am engraving the bottom. There's nothing to engrave on that next layer. And I'm gonna turn this down. This is a pretty thin piece of wood. Doesn't have a whole lot of bow to it, but I am gonna pin both sides. And you want to make sure there's not a lot of bounce. So if this pin wasn't here, you might notice that there's a lot more bounce with it. See that? You want to kind of eliminate that. So I'm going to put that in there and make sure it gets in a good spot. These honeycomb pins, they don't work so well after a few times. You might have to use more. So you just want to get it to where it stands still. This is pretty thin wood, so we won't have to worry about that too much. And now I'm going to set my focus here. I'm going to set my focus. I'm going to let that focus rest on there. Tighten it up. Now I am using a 10-watt laser. If you're using a 20-watt or 5-watt, your stuff may look a little different. And I manually like to position mine. I'm going to be cutting from the top left, 12 inch by 12 inch. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball where I want it. And then I'm going to go back to the computer and do some framing. And hopefully I can do a split screen while I am doing the framing. I can show you the computer work and laser working at the same time. Hopefully. So now that I have that positioned in there, I'm going to frame my project. Okay, and you'll see here this red box. It's got the little green arrow. That's our start point. We notice right here our start from current position, our job origin, top left. Okay, we're right there. The first thing I want to do is I want to go over here to move. I'm going to go over here to move, and I'm going to click get position. Okay. Oh, my laser is disconnected. So let me come down here, select my laser. Now it shows ready. Now I'm going to click get position. Okay, and it's going to automatically set wherever that is at 0. And I'm going to go over here and put set origin. Okay, and that's just in case we have an error and we have to go back. It's always easier if we have our laser with an origin set. We can come down and under here, under saved, under positions, somewhere there's a way to go back to return to the origin. So other people, sometimes they like to use move from machine 0. Some people like to fire their laser, which you can't see it here, but that turns the laser on. That creates a dot where the actual laser head is. I'm not planning on doing that, but we have set our origin, and I'm going to frame it. So if this was a circular object or an odd shaped object, I would use this frame, but because it is a square object, it's a pretty simple cut. I'm just gonna do this one. So I'm gonna hit frame, and make sure it doesn't run into anything, make sure it's not scraping anywhere. I'm gonna kind of try to give you this view too, more of an eye level view. Now you'll see how close that is to my board. It's actually scraping on the board. So I'm going to raise my laser, so I'm just going to come in here and reposition it because it looks like it did not hold strongly. So I'm just going to make sure everything's nice and tight the way it's supposed to be. Okay, see, it's still a little low, which is not bad if you're using a thicker wood, but with this 3mm wood, you don't want to lose any of your focus, because you want your focus to be in the center of the width of the material. So if you have a 6mm piece of wood, you're going to want to offset by like 3mm, which in some case may cause that to bump the bottom. Now this is the old D1. If you have a Pro, you have an adjustable arm on those, so you wouldn't be worried about that. But now that I've fixed this, should frame better, shouldn't get that scraping. Let's see. It's got good space underneath that. Okay. Now I'm going to pause here and clean my air nozzle off, because it looks like that didn't get done the last time it was used. So let me do that. Okay, so we cleaned our laser. Spilled a little bit of my cleaning solution there, but shouldn't be a problem. Now on my cut layers, I'm gonna go back over here because I did manually move that again. I'm gonna have to go back. Do that. You can barely see it moving because I'm only moving 1mm at a time. But I'm going to go ahead and do my set origin again. I'm going to frame. Let me tell you, the one thing I've learned about this is you can never frame too many times. Frame until you're absolutely certain it's where you want to be. And now, because I'm comfortable with that, I'm going to go back over here and make sure my layers are in order and my settings are correct. So my first setting for this, I know the settings that I need to use because I've used this material many times before. So this right here, I'm going to set my speed. I'm not trying to cut all the way through it. Remember, I'm just trying to engrave kind of deep, but like a thin line edge around here. So I never set my max power more than 90 on as a standard, just to maybe kind of prolong the life of it a little bit. But what I'm going to do is on this line, I'm going to set this line at 20mm per second. Again, this is the 10 watt, and I'm going to set it for 1 pass. Matter of fact, I may go a little higher than that. I'm going to go 30mm per second. And then on this cut line, so I have these right here. These are my material test cards. You can find this in my Etsy shop if you guys want it. And what I do is I cut this, and then I have a settings finder, which is also included in the file. And what I do is I set that behind there to find the fastest speed. Okay, so the lower the number, the faster it goes. So you just line that up. And it looks like our optimum settings are probably going to be around 17, which is 4 passes at 10 millimeters per second. The next option up is 5. What I like to do is also look at the back and make sure, like, I wouldn't want to use these settings even if they were the best, because it's got a lot of char on the back. So find my settings. We're gonna do not 10. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna do 9. I'm gonna slow it down just a little bit, and I'm still gonna do it for the 4 passes. Okay, that's how I'm gonna set that up. And that's just because these are smaller cuts, so they're liable to cut easier. Sometimes I even set it for 1 extra pass. Again, this is the 10 watt. If you have the 20 watt, your passes and speeds will not be the same. You'll have to do your own material cut test for those, just to kind of see what yours would be. So again, one more frame. And I'm going to make sure that my engraving is above my cutting, because that's going to keep the engraving still. And if while we're cutting something comes loose, then I don't want it to affect the Okay, here we go. Now, once again, we're going to frame. Again, you can't frame too many times. I know you guys are probably tired of seeing this by now, but I want to make sure you can see everything as it goes through. Now, I do have my air assist on. I'm using a variable pump air assist by ComGrow for this. The nozzle is an xTool nozzle, but the pump is the ComGrow pump because I like the variable airflow option. But because I'm cutting, I am going to go ahead and put that on pretty high, if not on full blast. Now I'm just going to go ahead and start. And while that's going there, I'm going to save my file, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to start working on the layers for this. I'm not going to mess with this, not going to reposition it or anything of that nature, but the job's already been sent, it's running, so I can manipulate these layers how I want them for the next setup. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to designate what I want as engraved and what I want as cut. So we have this open. This kind of shows us, in case we forget, which parts, how we want to affect each item. So I'm going to come back over here to laser, and we're going to set this outside. Make sure we're not moving anything. I'm going to set this onto a cut layer, but it's not going to be the same cut layer because I'm not going to use that same wood. Remember, we're using a thicker wood for the next job, or the next layer. So I'm going to set that to a different layer, which we'll do that later. This is going to go to that layer. Okay, what else is going to go to that layer? All these big shapes. I'm holding Control down and I'm going to select them. Try to select them all. Definitely don't want to move any of them. I think I got them all. Let's see. I'll let go of my Control key. I'm just going to click up. See, we missed a couple. So we want to make this one, shift this one, and move those over the green layer as well. We're going to go over here and do the same thing. on these outside shapes. Green layer, green layer. Now this can be time consuming. That's why I always want to get the laser going on something simple so we can utilize our time most efficiently. Now you see that little box that pops up? I'm not just clicking on the edge there like that. I'm making a little box with just my arrow pointing here. I'm dragging a little square over there just so it kind of catches the edge. That reduces the option of accidentally moving it. I'm hitting Control Z to undo that though. So I'm going to make this little box here and do that. It's whatever you're most comfortable with for each job. Those I felt pretty comfortable with. But we'll see when it's time to line it up, that's for sure. So now that we've got our cut layers selected, I'm going to go back and do our fill layer. Okay? Because I think that's going to be the next best option. Ooh, wrong one. This is the one we're at. So we've got all these as fill objects. All those are going to be fill. That might be a line, just depends on if it's a single or double. And we're going to do this one first. So let's go back over here. Let me see if I can just kind of do this a split layer so we can see it for reference here. I'm going to hold Control, Alt, Zoom, and then drag it where I want to. So I want that to be seen, and do the same thing here. So I'm going to drag this a little bit out of the way if I can. Huh. All right, well, we'll just have a smaller window here. But let's see. So these want to be a fill layer. So the first thing I noticed just now accidentally is that they're all connected. So I'm going to undo that, but that is good for us because they are all grouped together. I can put them on a layer, change it to fill, and look at there. Look how simple that was. Oh, nice. Okay, now I wonder if these are the same way. And again, remember when I move that, I just hit Control Z. Control and Z, or you can go up in here and click undo to get it back to where it was originally. Okay, so now these are all set up. So this is our cut layer. This is our fill layer. This little block is how we want it. So I'm going to select all of it with my select tool. Put a box around it, right click, and group. Now, if I move this, it all moves together, the layers stay intact. Now, I want you to take note of something. If I click on this group and I change it to a different layer, it all goes to that layer. Okay? Now, I'm going to undo that with Control Z. I just wanted to use that as a demonstration because that'll come in handy later. So now we're going to go over here. We're going to scroll over here to see what we're working with. Okay, so first thing we want to do our bunny ears. We're going to put those on that layer there. Wow, this one did the same thing. Beautiful, good. The SVG file that we're working with is pretty good there. I like high contrast, so I'm not really digging this green on green. So what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to come over here and I'm going to change this to change the layers on these colors. And I think the green layer actually, no, I'll change this one. I'll change that to a gray. There we go. So I like it to be easy on the eyes. So I change that to a gray layer. Change this color to gray. Oops. No, remember, you gotta ungroup it first, right? Then we're gonna change that layer to gray. So now we can see a little bit better. And we're gonna group this set together, right click group, and we're gonna do the same thing over here to this set, right click group. Now hopefully what's gonna happen is I'm gonna take this layer and put them together, and they're gonna line up pretty perfectly. So we'll see. I think I'm done with this for now, so let me get my full screen back. This tool up here is align vertical and horizontal. It's a centering line. Now yours may not, your lightburn setup may not look this way. If it doesn't, you're probably going to need to go into tools, or let's see, laser, no, let's see, here it is, window. Okay, you're going to need to go to window and make sure you have the things that you want to be able to see at all times. So I've got this object, it's moving as a whole object, this one's moving as a whole object. I'm going to select both of them and I'm clicking center, and let's see how it lines up. Well, I'll tell you right off the bat, it doesn't. It doesn't line up. When I click that, it doesn't line up when I click it. So when I click center, so I'm gonna have to go and manually put in. I'm gonna have to manually line it up myself. I'm gonna zoom in here, and again, you may not want to cut these all at the same time, but I think I do. You're gonna zoom in and make sure everything is lined up perfectly. We want to make sure we didn't accidentally move anything when we were manipulating the layers. We're just going to kind of go and check it all out. So I'm confident with how this is. So now that I have them together, I'm going to right click and I'm going to group them. Now there's one thing I want you to pay attention to. It's very important. These lines overlap. What that means is you may see one line, but there's actually two here. So if we set this to engrave 5, set this green line to engrave on 5 passes, then these right here are actually going to get 10 passes. So we need to take that into account when we're doing our layer options. Okay, and I'm just gonna leave this sitting here while that finishes up. Job's finished. I can see that it's free on this side, so I'm going to just try to see if it pops out freely. And it does. So this is our bottom layer. All right. Now I'm going to take this out and set that aside. And I'm going to get the scrap wood out of here. And I'm going to go ahead and load the machine. I'm going to go ahead and load the machine for our next layer. See if I can find. I'm trying desperately not to move the laser. I'd like to keep the same origin point. Not that it really matters, but I'm going to make sure I get the nicer side of the wood here. And we're going to pin it down just like before. Pretty sturdy there. Alright, now we're going to go back over here. This one's done. We're going to take this and we're going to put this on that layer tool, layer 2, and get it out of the way. Another option is, if we didn't want to do that, we wanted to leave the layers there in case we wanted to go back for it later. This is very important. Okay, we're going to move it off of our burn grid. And we're going to turn these layers off. Off and off. All right. I'm also going to drag them out of the way. I'm going to drag them down here to the bottom. There we go. Drag them down here to the bottom. And I'm going to turn them off. Turn that layer back on. Off and off. Okay. Now, but you'll notice, even though these layers are turned off, our green dot is still showing where this top layer is. The way we get around that is we make sure that it's up and to the left. Okay? Now, when we frame, we're going to have our layers on here. Now, I haven't set them up yet, but I'm going to frame it just to show you what happens. Okay, now, you'll see this is, see the green, how it moves? How it moves there. You want to make sure it's down and to the right. Okay, that's very important. Very important. So here we go with this. We're going to frame. And hopefully we don't run into anything. Ah, there we go. Now, if this is just a little bit higher, this still works as being part of the frame. Okay, so if we wanted to center this and turn those two layers off, that would be fine. I don't want to do that, so I'm gonna move this back over here. But if it was up and just a little to the left, okay, here's what's gonna happen if it's out of if it's not where it needs to be. All right, so let me group those together. Let's move those. So if it's just a little bit up, see how that's off there? Watch how it changes the frame. See? Did you see how it came down? Right? Let's watch it again. It's going to come down and to the right from the start point. Watch it. Down and to the right. So it's coming from here before it starts framing our object. But we don't want to do that. We're pulling that out of the way. So now, frame it again. Good job. Now I'm going to set up my layers here. We're using the same wood unexpectedly. So what I'll do is on layer 3, I'm going to just copy those same cut settings, except for, remember, there's 2 layers, 2 lines in certain places. So we're going to change. What we're going to do is I'm going to ungroup this. I'm going to ungroup it again. I want to make sure that's by itself, and we're going to Control Z to put it back where it goes. And I'm going to take that and put it on a separate layer. I'll put that on layer 6 by itself, and I'm going to copy these same 990. 990. What did we have it at? 4 for that one. 994. So they're the same. We got one layer on, one layer off. First thing we're going to do is engrave. That's a fill at 50 and 90. I think that's a little too dark. I'm going to go a little faster. I don't think it needs to be that heavy, especially since this is just kind of a test. I'm going to go ahead and make it, I'm going to go ahead and make that fill speed, I'm going to go ahead and make that fill speed 100. Okay. I'm going to leave my overscan at 5%, my interval at 0.1, of course from one pass. Now, this right here, fill shapes all at once, groups together, individually. I'm going to say individually because there's a lot of dead space in between. If we did all at once, it's going to go back and forth and back and forth. If we did groups together, it's going to do one group and the other group, and we don't want that either. So we're going to go fill shapes individually. I'm going to click OK. And then this is our second line. Okay, this one we have to treat a little bit different. We're going to do the same speed and the same power, But on passes, instead of 4 passes, we're going to do 3 passes. Okay? Now that's going to put 6 passes right here on those right there. So we're going to have a lot of extra. Matter of fact, let's change it to 2 passes. So that'll just give them 4 there again. Okay, and hopefully these little thumb holes will come out just fine. And if we need to go back over those, we might go back over those one more time, but we'll see. So those are the settings I'm going to set. Then we're going to right click and we're going to hit preview. Let's see, set to fill. But they weren't closed. I'm not sure what that means. Preview. Let's see what continue looks like. Well, I'm not sure what that meant. Because everything that I'm seeing that I want filled is showing as filled. And it's telling us it's going to be a 2-hour cut job. I'm going to engrave it, see it fills them individually. Now let's see if we can get this number down. Remember the other options I was telling you on that line over there? Around this fill option here? Fill shapes all at once. Let's change it to that and do a preview again. Continue. 239, no, that's higher. Let's see, fill groups together. Preview. I'm not sure what that is. Everything appears to be good to me. So 3 hours. So again, my estimation from the beginning was correct. Fill shapes individually. It won't always be like that. If you don't have a lot of dead white space, then you may have a different answer. But on this one, that's what it is. But we're going to go preview, continue, and we're going to see how it goes. So it's going to start. It's going to fill these objects. Then it's going to do your green cut layer, and then it's going to do our outside cut layer. So click OK. We're going to frame one more time. We're going to get started on the job here. We're going to continue through that because I'm not sure what's causing it, but let's see how it goes. Alright, so this is running on 10 times speed because, well, no one wants to sit here for 2.5 hours while it burns, and if you don't want to, feel free to skip through this part. I won't be saying much, if anything. You will see me touch the board a couple of times. That's just me checking to see if everything is cutting smoothly. At one point, I think I even bumped the board and I had to try to put that back into place. I come into an alignment issue with the engraving as a result of that, but being as this is just a test piece, I didn't pay it a big deal and didn't redo pieces. If it had been for a customer, I would have redone it. But when this is done, I will show you the final product. So I've taken everything apart and I am about to assemble it. These are my little puzzle pieces. I think they came out quite well. I need to sand these down a little bit. I would sand them down and give them a nice coat of stain if I were giving this to someone, or if I were going to be using this for you know, personal use. But since this is just a tutorial, I'm not going to go through those steps. Right now, this is our 2 layers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue the back. I'm going to make sure this is oriented the right way. I'm going to glue the back, and we're going to clamp it. And I will be back to show you the final result. Okay, so here I am putting some glue on. I'm doing this very sloppy. I'm doing it one hand and one hand on the camera. It's not at all professional, so I do apologize. But look, my clip's in the way. But I got it all glued. And again, this was probably like 3 o'clock in the morning, so I'm extremely tired at this point. But then we're going to clamp it. There it is clamped, and here are some stills. Just some still pictures of it. Kind of an odd angle. Here's a shown with the pieces. And this is my final image. Really like how it turned out. You know, there could be some things done better. Again, you see around the animals on the top, they did get out of line when it came time to cut. But overall, you know, for a test piece, a demo piece, just for a tutorial, I think it turned out pretty well. So, thank you for joining us. Just hit subscribe, ask me questions in the comments, like, follow, etc. There's a link in bio with links to my Facebook, YouTube, xTool, Comgrow, Amazon links, Facebook groups and such. Lots of different stuff there, so check it out and leave me any comments, questions, concerns. I'll happy to address anything you got. I'm also going to find the designer of this file and try to put a link to her Etsy page if you're interested in purchasing this file. Thank you so much. Have a great day, guys.